Welcome everyone. Welcome to Conscious Confidence Radio. Welcome along. I'm Sarah Main, creator and host of Conscious Confidence, a Timeless Wisdom. And today we're going to be talking about dignity and self-respect. So the show's on dignity. And as you know, I link in with Sanskrit. I look into the Sanskrit meanings of key points, key topics, key themes that are important to how we live our lives so that we can thrive. And I go back to the Sanskrit because, as always, Sanskrit gives us this incredible perspective. So today, and I've been doing a series of shows on key themes like love, patience, strength, beauty. And this one's on dignity and self-respect. So let me pose some questions to you. What do you understand of dignity? Do you think about dignity? What do you understand of self-respect? Do you think about dignity and self-respect as you go about your life every day? Do you ever think about dignity and self-respect that they might be important? And do you think dignity and self-respect are connected? They're just some questions to get us thinking about dignity and self-respect, because it's not always something we think about unless we see a lack of it. We might say, oh, that was so undignified to say that, or that person doesn't have a lot of self-respect, or out of respect for myself, I'm going to choose something. But it's usually when it appears to be lacking that we then address what dignity and self-respect is. And there's a beautiful quote by Abraham Heschel, and it says, self-respect is the root of discipline. The sense of dignity grows with the ability to say no to oneself. So that's a very interesting quote, I thought, because saying no to oneself is that element of dignity, element of discipline, where we can literally defer pleasure rather than just saying yes and having immediate pleasure for something. Actually knowing that saying no to something in the immediate situation is for a greater good in the longer term. So you have to have a broader, bigger view, a goal in mind to be able to say no now for the greater good, the greater achievement later. So self-respect is the root of discipline. The sense of dignity grows with the ability to say no to oneself. So what is dignity? So going back to the Sanskrit, because Sanskrit can always fill out our understanding of the true nature of this quality. And remember, I go back to Sanskrit because Sanskrit is a mother of European languages, and English is a European language. So English and Sanskrit are close relations. You wouldn't think it, but they actually are linguistically. And the word Sanskrita means pure and perfectly formed. So this wisdom in Sanskrit is worth paying attention to because it's pure and perfectly formed. So when we're considering dignity, let's go back and find out what this pure and perfectly formed wisdom says. So the Sanskrit word for dignity is mahatmyam, mahatmyam. And this is a compound word. It's made up of two parts, like we have high chair and football in English. They're compound words made up of two individual words. Foot and ball makes football, which is a separate thing from foot and ball. Mahatmyam is made up of maha, which means great, and atman, which means the essential indwelling self or soul. So mahatmyam means great-souled, having a great or noble nature, high-minded, highly gifted and exceedingly wise. It doesn't say someone's rich, doesn't say they're poor, doesn't say they're educated, doesn't say they have a lot of things, doesn't say that they're good looking or not. It's talking about the inner state. Great-souled, high-minded, noble, exceedingly wise. So that is what Sanskrit says about dignity, mahatmyam, great-souled. So here's a story now. Normally I tell stories that are already written, but today we're going to create our own. So think of someone you know or you know of, someone with a quiet assurance, a person with a strong moral compass, someone you really respect for their moral compass that guides them, someone who's not swayed by passing fancies, a man or woman who sets a clear direction for their lives, someone who's dependable and trustworthy, someone who doesn't give their word lightly, but having given it, they always follow through. This is a person who others go to for comfort or who others think of when presented with a problem. We may not be likely to meet this person personally. They may not even be alive anymore. Doesn't matter. Because meeting this person is always available in a meeting of hearts and minds. So perhaps you could think of the Dalai Lama. Perhaps you could think of Mother Teresa. Maybe you could think of your grandfather or your grandmother. Doesn't matter. Think of that person. I've had immense honor and privilege in my life to have met many people who are just like this, and I'm sure you have too. Strong people in the true sense of that word, not forceful or combative, but steady and resilient. And with that person still in our mind and heart right now, let's go back to those first questions. What do we understand of dignity? What of self-respect? Do you think of dignity and self-respect as you go through your life? Do you think dignity and self-respect are important? Are dignity and self-respect connected? Dignity is an interesting one because it's quite a subtle, elusive quality. It's hard to describe in words, but you know it when you see it. And just because you can't talk about it or describe it easily doesn't make it unimportant. But you know it when you see it. It's really important. It's that quiet strength and integrity and dependability. And it always engenders respect and a feeling of admiration. The word dignity actually comes from the Latin dignitas, which carries the sense of worthiness and honor, fitting and proper. So with dignity, there's worth, value, and substance, and it's linked to what's fitting and proper and appropriate in the situation. So a man and woman of dignity is worthy of honor and behaves in a way that fits the situation. Among friends, they're friendly. And when they're in a position of leadership, they're respectful of those to whom they're responsible, and they're decisive when action is required. They're careful of the feelings and needs of others, but they're not swayed by personal considerations for doing the right thing. It's a sign of self-respect to choose dignity in our thoughts, in our words, and our deeds, to choose the highest and choose the best, and to be high-minded. This is to be great-souled, mahatmyam. So for example, as a teacher, there were students I taught, no matter what their age or ability, I've seen quite young children like this and older children, who were respectful of other students no matter the differences of age and differences of ability. They always saw the best in others. And I saw this over 30 years. I saw many students like that. It didn't matter whether they were 6 years old, 5 years old, 12 years old, 15 years old. They always saw the best. Didn't matter their background. It had nothing to do with wealth or anything. It was in their nature to choose the best, to be high-minded, go for the highest, go for the best. So impressive. I found engendered immediate respect in myself for that student, immediate admiration. So that's where the differences of age and experience and so on just completely are irrelevant and dissolve, because that quality over sort of flew over the top of everything. So dignity is incredibly powerful, and we know it when we see it. So what's the true nature of dignity? So the Sanskrit says mahatmyam, and that's great-souled and high-minded. So that's number one. Think of dignity and think of great-souled and high-minded. Then next, think of dignity as an indicator of self-respect. And lastly, think of dignity as, whilst it's elusive and hard to describe, we know it when we see it, and it's definitely worth choosing. So we're going to take a break, and when I come back, I'm going to give you a practical exercise for you to use, and it's directly from the timeless wisdom traditions of the Upanishads. And this is one that is directly a way of developing dignity and choosing dignity within yourself and self-respect within yourself. So, and this is from the Upanishads. So like I say, this is making timeless wisdom utterly practical in our daily life. So we'll be back soon with this practice. We'll see you then. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to Conscious Confidence Radio. I'm Sarah Main, and we're talking today about dignity and this elusive, beautiful quality of dignity, which is hard to describe, but we know it when we see it. And Sanskrit, and as you know, I always go back to Sanskrit because Sanskrit is a mother of European languages and English is a European language. So when we use the word dignity, we're immediately connected with our roots linguistically. And Sanskrit talks about dignity as mahatmyam, which means great-souled and high-minded. And we were considering someone that we really admired and what they had to offer and why we admired them. There was something about them that we always admired, and we may be able to go and ask them if we have a problem. We may be able to go back to them, but they may not be alive, but they're just someone that we have in our mind and heart, and we admire them, even though they may have passed on now. But we can still meet them in our mind and our heart. And that power of dignity, that power of self-respect, that power of wisdom is still present, even though they're physically not with us anymore. So at the end of the last session, I was going to give you now a practice, and this practice is from the Taittiriya Upanishad, and it's very practical advice. When you don't know what to think or say or do in a particular situation, think of what some wise man or woman of your town would think, say, or do in the same situation, and do likewise. Well, that sounds a bit obvious, don't you think? But that is utterly practical. That is universal wisdom directly from the Upanishadic tradition, which is ancient, thousands upon thousands of years old, directly coming to us as a practical thing we can use in our life, in our daily activities. When you don't know what to think or say or do in a particular situation, think of what some wise man or woman of your town would think, say, or do in the same situation, and do likewise. Now, that is a way of practicing dignity and self-respect. To actually think to do that in a situation where you don't know what to think, what to say, or what to do, it could be any of those three or all of those three, then think of someone, a wise man or woman in your town, in the same situation, and think, what would they do? Ask that question of yourself. And whatever the answer is, then do likewise. And that's applying timeless wisdom in your life. And it is transformative. Try it and find out. Try it deliberately and intentionally and find out for yourself whether timeless wisdom really works. So we're up to the mailbag, which is ask me anything, ask me your questions. And today we've got two beautiful questions. And the first question is from Jayla. And she says, everything feels so uncertain right now, and I'm finding it hard each day with so much fear and change everywhere. What can you suggest that might help? Well, that is a great question. Thanks, Jayla. And I would suggest one approach is this whole area of patience and strength and steadiness that comes through what I describe in an article that I've written called Kshama. And Kshama is patience. And you think, well, how's that going to help me? Well, patience in relation to strength and steadiness and forbearance. That means, in a sense, putting up with the situation, handling the situation, tolerating the situation, but with a sense of strength and calmness and good cheer, really. Understanding that it will pass, because all situations do pass. You can go back and read the article. It's on my website. It's linked on my website. It's on patience. I wrote it a few months ago, and it's around, but it's certainly on my website. And this talks about this element of patience that's not just gritting your teeth and putting up with things. It's actually having the steadiness and inner resolve and inner resilience and strength to just ride through situations that aren't so easy. Stay peaceful, stay calm. And that really is the way. And to do that practically, it comes down to feeling your feet on the floor in the present moment, coming back to yourself, taking a few deep breaths, pulling your shoulders back, standing up straight, and looking out and giving praise to or gratitude for something wonderful in your life right now. And the power of actually that praise and that gratitude and standing up straight and coming into the present moment takes your mind out of the immediate concern or problem that you're facing. And also engaging in the practice that I just gave from the Upanishad, which is think of what a wise man or woman would do in this very same situation. What would they do if they were feeling like this? What would they do if they were facing these uncertain times? That taps into an incredible well of wisdom within yourself, and it's incredibly powerful. It sounds silly, it sounds too simple, sounds simplistic, but it isn't. It's incredibly powerful if you actually practice it. So in the situation when you're feeling uncertain, when you're feeling pulled around by the uncertainties and stresses and strains of the situation, particularly at the moment, then stop, come into the present moment, take a deep breath, shoulders back, head up, look out, give some praise and gratitude for something wonderful in your life, even that the sun is shining or there's air to breathe at the tip of your nostrils. Every time you want to breathe, there's air that you breathe in. That is just an untold gift that we have every single day, every moment of the day. Think of that and then ask that question and stay grounded and move through your day that way. If you see, it takes practice. This is a muscle. It's an act of will, and will is like a muscle, and it needs practice. It needs strength, like you would be training in the gym. And this practice of asking what a wise man or woman would do in the situation, again, is a practice. It's an act of will, and it takes repetition. But if you start doing that, it is literally transformative, life-changing in terms of how you can go from being pulled around by constant stresses and strains and concerns to finding you have a steadiness within yourself to move through life, handle what comes up, thrive, enjoy, grasp opportunities as they come up, and you will grow stronger and happier as a result. So I hope that helps. And the second question is from Nathan. And this one is, I like the link with Sanskrit. It makes me think about things from a different perspective. What are good books to read to deepen my knowledge? That's a great question. I love being asked about Sanskrit. Thanks, Nathan. If you wanted to learn Sanskrit, there are tons of ways of doing that. There's online courses, there's books, of course, and then there, depending on where you live, there may be even live courses that you can attend. The online courses, there are a lot. I know one place, which is the American Sanskrit Institute, and they offer really nice and really good courses. And there are online courses there that you can attend and learn Sanskrit that way. And I highly recommend that if you would like to go down that route. If you want to just know more sort of philosophically, then you can start with my book, Conscious Confidence, A Timeless Conscious Confidence, Use the Wisdom of Sanskrit to Find Clarity and Success, because there's a lot of Sanskrit based in practical approaches, stories, contemporary accounts, all sorts of things, plus there's all the Sanskrit derivations to get you thinking. So my book, Conscious Confidence, Use the Wisdom of Sanskrit to Find Clarity and Success, is one approach. You could also, if you want to actually read the direct timeless wisdom, get a copy of the Bhagavad Gita. There are literally thousands of translations. The translations vary, so you have to find one that suits you. There are simpler ones, and then there are more poetic ones. There are more academic ones. There are more literal ones, depending on the translations from the Sanskrit. But get a copy of the Bhagavad Gita, or even just a few verses, and read them and think about them, contemplate them, ask yourselves questions. A book like the Gita will really get you thinking differently. And then if you want great Western traditions of literature and philosophy, I can suggest Shakespeare. Take a passage of Shakespeare, a famous speech, and read that and think about it and learn it by heart. What is he saying? What's the importance of it? What's the significance of it to me? Ask yourselves questions and contemplate. And contemplate means you're holding your mind on something for a while and going deeply into it. You could also try that with some Plato. There's amazing passages of Plato. Just take the allegory of the cave in the Republic. That's in my book, actually. Towards the end is the allegory of the cave. Read Plato's description of that. So start with something like that and see where it takes you, see what you're drawn to. But anything like this takes you deeper past the normal level of the five senses, which is the level of life that we normally live at. We just have this sort of relationship with our five senses and the sort of physical aspect of life, and then our chattering mind, and that tends to be our daily experience. But anything that takes you deeper and gets you seeing things from a broader perspective, from a deeper perspective, is transformative. And I can, as you're discovering, it's so important, and it changes the way you approach life, it changes the way you see life, and therefore the way you experience life. So I hope that's sort of enough to get started, and do come back to me with more questions if you want more information, or you want to discuss anything that you've found or come up to in your study. So if you want to find out more about conscious confidence, then go to my website, consciousconfidence.com. There's a ton of information there. There's links to magazine articles. There's links to get my book, and my book comes in paperback, ebook, and audiobook. There's links to all my other podcasts. There's a ton of material there. There's a blog. There's also a free alignment guide, Design Your Own Alignment Guide, which is 2 videos and some downloadable worksheets, and you can put your email address in there and that'll come straight to your inbox. And you can also follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. That's Conscious Confidence Sarah Main, Conscious Confidence Sarah Main, and I'm on Facebook and Instagram. Drop me a question there. I'd love to hear from you. So there's ways you can get in touch. And remember that Sanskrit has your back. These wisdom traditions are timeless. I think you could say they're ancient, but they're really timeless. They know who you are in truth. They know you're whole. They know you're enough. They know your limitlessness. They know you're universal. And let's finish with a bit of Sanskrit, because it's always great to hear some Sanskrit at the end of a show. Because I talk so much about it. So let's hear some actual Sanskrit. And this is from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. And it goes, lead me from the unreal to the real. Lead me from darkness to light. Lead me from death to immortality. May peace and peace and peace be everywhere. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So thanks for joining me. Remember dignity and self-respect, and we'll see you next time.